he showed me a battered 7-inch copy sleeve, and says these guys here. Oh yeah, I have heard of them. And I said, so how much you selling this for? And he goes, oh, I'm not selling it. I said, well, you just playing it, are you? Just showing off, Well, thanks so much. This is a record fair, you idiot. Just go play your tunes. Go back to your fucking bedroom. But anyway, so yeah, I was a bit pissed off with them, to be fair.
It sounds like it. Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. It's Andy, it's John, and it's time to talk some music. And John is going to be offering up something for me to go off and listen to that we will then discuss in further detail. But before I can do any of that, or we can do any of that, I'm going to need that information, John. So, artist, song, give it to me.
So the band is called Hypnotic Brass Ensemble.
Okay. All right.
Guess what they play?
Yeah, well, two things. One, the name kind of gives it away. And two, several degrees of separate. I know that these guys exist only because I know artists who either have respect them or have sampled them. And I probably only know a very small fraction of those that have sampled them, to be honest with you. So I guess this will be kind of cool to, instead of listening to them being part of a song, listening to something that is a complete piece by them themselves, which will be nice and a change of pace, and probably something I should have done before, because I know that in all likelihood I'll dig this, because I've really liked what I've heard as sampled bits in, like, hip hop and rap stuff. So
yes, they are not unaccustomed to the world of hippity hoppity, as they say.
Yes, yeah. That is how they put it too, I believe. You're
yeah.
right.
So we have the track is called Brass in Africa.
Brass in Africa. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Imagine that.
Let me get my
no
passport. Let me get my suitcase and my passport and get back to the place where it all started and go give this a listen, and I will come back and let you guys know what I think. This is fabulous. These horns are insane. Is that that's a bass line, but is that a bass line being played by a tuba, essentially? Oh my, it sounds like it. That sounds really, really funky and good, and just, I'm only 38 seconds into this. It's already, like, really well arranged, or at least that's it's indicative of being really, really well arranged, even though I'm only just a fraction of the way through this thing. But my God, this sounds awesome. Love these cutouts. That's smooth. my God, that was just so smooth. We're going to take that back. Um, just all the horns are great, but that little trumpet line there was lovely. And again, this tuba like bass line is fabulous. Mm. God, I wish that was a little bit longer. Oh, what a perfect marriage of like funk and jazz, and excellent use of like counter melody between some of the like horns and what they were doing with one another or based off one another. Like it's sort of this sort of dialogue between the horns that was happening throughout the song. Hats off to the drummer. Amazing, amazing drumming work. And I loved how there would be all these like little portions where the horns would cut out, let him or them, her, I don't know, shine, and then everything would come back in. And they kind of used that a few times throughout the song. I'm just a sucker for that. Also, John can confirm this for me, but I am like fairly certain that tuba was kind of doing the like what would be conventionally like a bass guitar line for that. I don't know, maybe they were both there, but the tuba was speaking to me a lot in this track, and it sounded fabulous. I know these guys have been sampled by, God, I want to say Mos Def and Wu-Tang, and De La Soul, and probably a bunch of others that I'm completely ignorant to. But you hear this and you can understand why artists would select these guys to be like, featured or sampled in their songs. This is really, really good stuff. And I am Jones, because outside of the name and knowing more about who have sampled them than the band actually, like I don't really know much about this hypnotic brass ensemble outside of their works have been used by artists I'm more familiar with. So I'm interested to learn more about them from John. So let's get back to him. That's good stuff.
Thomas Schaffernacker, he's back. So you've basked in the African sun while listening to these sweet vibrations from the Hypnotic Ensemble.
Yeah.
What do you make of it all?
Well, for starters, your hitting streak continues of giving me instrumentals that are absolutely infectious and that I love so much. This is just another one of those.
What can I say? I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. If only you had written this, and I could give you full credit for everything. But thank you at the very least.
Well,
for pointing
more on that later. But no.
Okay. I'm sure John's going to be credited at some part. One of the many brass instruments used in here. That would truly be surprising.
I was on kazoo.
Oh, that's great. No, this was awesome. I mean, that funky drum beat kicks in, and you already know that something's a brewing, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the scent from the kitchen in the other room. You're like, what the hell's going on in there? So yeah, that drum beat kicks in. I'm fully has my attention, and it obviously is like soaked in jazz and funk. Um, and then affirmation comes pouring in with all these horns that start doing their bit, and it's pretty trumpet heavy. But I have to say that and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I was trying to see if these were two different instruments or one doing the what would be the conventional role of the bass in this song, and that is the tuba, which we've often, and I assume it's the tuba. It very much sounded like. No, it isn't. What was it? What was the instrument making that bass line type sound? That was a horn.
Sousaphone.
Oh, sousaphone. Okay, all
Yeah.
right. Because
I
it was,
only know that because I did the research.
yeah,
I would
yeah,
say
yeah, exactly,
tuba all day long. So
exactly.
there's not a problem there. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, they're similar in pitch, as in
yeah,
they're
they're very,
lower registered, right?
it's a tuba family.
Yeah, yeah, I would
Yeah.
imagine. It was
It's a
awesome.
star, isn't it? It's a star. It really
Well,
is.
it's you also have to give the flowers to the drummer for being the one
Yeah.
non-horn instrument that's kind of like stirring this whole drink. But the the root of the flavor of the
Yeah.
beverage is provided by that bassy, what I thought was a
Bum,
tuba.
bum, 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 bum,
Yeah, yeah,
bum, 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 bum,
yeah.
bum,
I found myself. You can literally see my jowls going
yeah,
in the reaction, because
yeah.
I'm already a bass player, so I'm seeking that out, and then I'm like, wait a minute, at times it sounds like plucks, but I can hear air in there,
Yeah.
and it's just a little bit of a different animal, and I just loved that. That was
Yeah.
so cool, and I don't know, to not hear it used as like, and you've said this before. I know you said it about the tuba, but we're talking about that umbrella, like the most comical instrument in all of musicdom. Uh,
Yeah.
but I took it very serious. It brought me joy. It made me smile, but it wasn't like ha ha ha. It was more like, this is so inventive and neat that
Yeah.
they're using this to really play that part. So yeah, adored that. And just jazz funk bliss. And the drums were proving why they started the song, because they're setting the pace and the feel for this really enjoyable track. And so much so that like so I at one point I started to like chronicle when this happened. I've really only underscored once or twice when it happened, but so often the music, like the horns cut out and let the drums breathe, only to build back around that. So this thing is clearly the through line on which all this stuff is built, pulled back, pushed forward, all around this awesome drum work. So hats off to the drummer, as well as the what you sousaphone, is that what you said was the
Sousaphone. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yes,
I
the
will explain.
yeah, yeah, please do. When the time comes. There's such deft use of like counter melody and sounds from like one grouping of horns ricocheting off others. And it gives this song like constant, unrelenting movement, which is what makes it so danceable. If you would be really, really hard pressed not to move some part of your body while listening to this. And if you're not, check your pulse or see a neurologist, because this thing it makes you move, tap a foot, a finger, clap your hands, move your shoulders, bop your head. All any and all of those things are absolutely appropriate when listening to this kind of music. It just absolutely stirs you physically. Around the 106 mark, this is one of the times where I logged it. The horns cut out, leaving the drums to carry the beat for a few seconds, and then the horns return. But that moment is short-lived as the horns return. But when the return is, but that and the return is brief. As a lone trumpet carries this wonderful melody over the drums to around the 142 mark or something like that. I had to take that back and listen to that. That trumpet sounded gorgeous.
Yeah.
Um, and the horn collective cuts out again a couple more times throughout the remainder of the track, before it comes to an end. And like, this song could have been another 2 minutes longer, and I wouldn't have been the least bit upset by that. It was a bit short for me, but sometimes the best moments in life are brief. So yeah, I adored it. I'm not gonna fetch too much about how this song could have been longer but wasn't. But if I had to pose a gripe, that would be my one lone gripe. And I know these guys have worked with, like, I'm a big fan of Mos Def. Any of that kind of like backpack rap that's like really thoughtful and insightful and not just about cars and money and girls and all that stuff. Don't get me wrong, that's fun in the club and shit like that. Yeah, or all the gun toting, like you're going to get your shit. All that's fine. And oftentimes still great production and beat work and all this stuff, the assembly of all that. But Mos Def, De La Soul, that's more like my bread and butter when it comes to hip hop and R&B. And I know that both of them have used this. Now, another group that I'm a huge fan of that dips and dabbles in all of it, but is always for the kids, is Wu-Tang. And I know Wu-Tang has sampled these guys too before, if I'm not mistaken. Because this has like RZA, Jizza written all over it, like stuff that they would gravitate towards, you know what I mean, as far as music outside of rap. So love them, love their decisions, love their songs and their production. And if those three artists that I just named from that genre, who are all heavy hitters of that genre, have used these guys in their songs, that probably speaks to how great their oeuvre is outside of this one song that I find great by them that you've now introduced me to. So I would imagine that there's a pretty broad and deep well to draw from when it comes to these guys and their music. So I'd be interested to learn more about them outside of what very little I know. So give it to me.
Okay, so yeah, I kind of approached this in the same way as you. I knew about these guys through their hibbity hobbity work, but that was about it. And I'll be honest with you, I only heard this track about 6 weeks ago for the
Oh,
first time. So I was at a record fair, and a guy in the corner was playing some tunes, and they usually play the same old shit because they're, I don't know, been a bloody Queen or Steppenwolf or some shit like that. But not shit like that, but you know what I mean. It's
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. Stuff
but
you
suddenly
know very well, and you'd like to hear and
yeah.
be experienced to do shit when you go into them. Yeah, I get it.
And this stuff came on, and I was like, "Holy crap!" I recognize this, but I don't recognize this. And it took me about 20 seconds to place the tune. I do. It's a cover, actually, or an interpretation cover of Shaft in Africa.
Okay.
Hence that. So I went across to the guy and I was like, "Who the hell is this?" And he showed me a battered 7-inch copy, a sleeve, and says, "These guys here." Oh yeah, I have heard of them. And I said, "So, how much are you selling this for?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm not selling it." I said, "Well, you just playing it, are you? Just showing off? Well, thanks so much. This is a record fair, you idiot. Just go play your tunes. Go back to your fucking bedroom." But anyway, so yeah, I was a bit pissed off with them, to be fair.
It sounds like it.
So
And
I went back and
understandable.
researched it, and here we are. So, Hypnotic Brass Ensemble is a 9-piece Chicago-based brass ensemble consisting of 8 brothers of the jazz trumpeter Coran. Now, their musical style ranges from hip hop to jazz to funk and rock, including calypso and gypsy music. They call their eclectic blend of sound now music or hypnotic. Reared in the teachings of music since they were children, they grew up on the stage playing as the Phil Coran Youth Ensemble. So the players are Gabriel Hubert trumpet, Saif Greaves trombone, Amal Baji Hubert trumpet, Jafir Baji Graves trumpet, Saber Graves trombone, Tariq Graves trumpet, Utama Hubert baritone horn, and Tycho Curran sousaphone, and then Christopher Anderson drums. So obviously the drummer's not from the family.
So
I'm just
did I catch 4 trumpets and 2 trombones in that lineup?
yes.
Oh my gosh, man. They got all the brass.
Yeah, yeah. So just to go on to the sousaphone is a brass musical instrument in the tuba family. It was created around 1893 by J.W. Pepper. Now that is a name, isn't it? J.W. Pepper, just service, ma'am.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's a perfect name for that time period too. Like there were
yeah,
all
yeah,
these
yeah.
like JW this or SNK that or whatever.
But by the way, I have some snake oil to sell you as well. So yeah, Mr. J.W. Pepper, he created the sousaphone at the direction of American band leader John Philip Sousa, after whom the instrument was named. You know,
There you
Sousa's
go.
marching bands, etc. So it's designed to be easier to play than the sort of concert tuba while standing or marching, as well as carry the sound of the instrument above the heads of the band. So as I understand it, it's more of the wraparound sort of tuba goes around the
Okay.
body, and then the funnel bit goes up and forwards as well, so it's projecting as they move. So that's the idea behind it. Um, so sousaphone.
Interesting.
So the brothers were raised in a house where music was the constant sort of thread.
Yeah.
Um, they held rehearsals in the living room and they put on live shows in the adjacent loft stroke theatre. They used to get up at 6 a.m. and they played their horns before and after school. As adolescents, they played around Chicago, as I said, the Phil Cohen Youth Ensemble, performing for the likes of Harold Washington and Nelson Mandela and other
Wow.
prominent figures of the day happened to be visiting Chicago and all that sort of area. As the brothers grew into high school, many of them set aside their horns for a while. Um, but certain things happened, including some deaths of some close friends and family, including
Hmm.
brother Anthony Neal. They all sort of decided to pick their horns up again. And in 1999, the brothers took to the subways of Chicago and started presenting their music. They don't like to call it busking, but that's what they did.
Yeah.
Shortly afterwards, they formed a fully fledged eight-piece brass ensemble. And by 2004, had recorded their first project called Flipside, which is also known as Hypnotic Orange. And they moved to New York in 2006. So they have released 13 albums since the first Hypnotic Orange in 2004 and numerous EPs and singles. The last album being This Is a Mindfulness Drill in 2021, which also features on it Perfume Genius and Sharon Van Etten. Um, this track is a standalone single from 2007. It is based on Shaft in Africa, the soundtrack to the film. Soundtrack was done by Johnny Pate. It's got like a track by Four Tops, which is in it like three times. The original version of this is heavy on percussion, particularly the congas, funky wah guitar, and a capricious Hammond organ. And it is a solid gold funk classic. Totally of the blaxploitation sort of genre of
Right.
music.
Right.
It's awesome. So yeah, as you said, the Hypnotic Brass Ensemble have collaborated or played with Mos Def, Wu-Tang Clan, De La Soul, Prince, Femi
Wow.
Kuti, Gorillaz, B-52, Snoop Dogg, Erica Badu, RZA, Ghostface Killer, Maxwell, and Childish Gambino, amongst others.
Wow, wow, wow. That list included way more people than I thought and plenty of artists or bands that I'm familiar with. I mean,
Yeah,
ranging anywhere from like Gorillaz to Badu to Prince. Pretty,
yeah,
pretty healthy resume these fellows have drummed up
yeah, yeah.
over the time. Damn.
So
And when did they go from, forgive me if you mentioned this, John, and I got lost in the sauce, but when did they go from being sort of this like I don't want to use the term, but busking, ensemble to an actual full-fledged recording artist that was signed and putting out stuff?
2004.
Okay, 2004. Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I think they played over America. They also played a lot in Europe as well, going around just
Okay.
putting it out there. But they kind of see it as spreading the word rather than busking with a hat for money.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
yeah, I'm
they did.
sure.
It's purely promotional, really. Which I guess is a great way of looking at it. So yeah, there's not a huge amount about them on there, but I did find a couple of quotes from Gabriel Hubert, who said sometimes parents have a plan for their children that the child doesn't necessarily see until later in life. Our father didn't want his music to be closed out of musical history because his music informed not just people like Sun Ra, but Curtis Mayfield and Earth, Wind and Fire too. So he wanted to teach his children to spread that knowledge of music, its origins, how to heal people with it, that kind of stuff. We're still trying to fill his shoes. It goes on, what we want to do is be crusaders for the musicians because the musicians are important. You might be able to sample things through a keyboard, but a keyboard can't duplicate heart. People take music for granted, but you can't imagine a day when the bird didn't get up and sing for you.
Mm.
Cool
It's
words, I think, and
it sounds
good
like a
approach.
much healthier version of like what was it Joe Jackson had planned for his kids. Like this is far healthier, and but this like this idea that like, hey, I'm gonna feed this fire to my kids and have them carry the baton for the next generation is pretty cool and clearly the right way to do it versus his counterpart in Jackson. Yeah, that's pretty, and to have that many kids and to get them all on board is pretty phenomenal. I mean, that's his first claim to fame is his own musicianship. But this seems to be even more of a task to get all these kids to carry the mantle. That's amazing.
Yeah, I didn't write this down actually, but looking at him, the father, he's fairly well known as a jazz musician, but not one of the top echelons. But I think he set up around Chicago, and it may have been all across America, but like a music sort of musicians welfare thing where they're looking after musicians
Yeah.
and their interests, which I think has been really important as well. So he's clearly, done a lot for that community
The
and
the
is well
one
respected.
the one thing I thought was really interesting, and I'm sure that there's a reasonable logical explanation for it, and it's not like, I mean, if you're from just about anywhere else, moving to New York to take your career to the next level makes perfect sense. But Chicago seems like the perfect city for this kind of music, with the right amount of people to enjoy it. I mean, it's a really diverse melting pot of Latinos, African Americans, different European Americans. This jazz is huge and blues is huge in Chicago. This would have, to me, I wouldn't think one would have to uproot and transplant to carry this goal forward. Chicago is a big city with an appetite for music.
Yeah. But then again, I think the other avenue that we both know them from immediately is hip hop. So New York would
Yeah.
make sense in that case because they'll probably get more dollars from that than they would just doing their own stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of the studios and the labels were probably set up out, but there are some great rappers and hip hop acts out of Chicago. But I get it, especially early 2000s. I mean, New York was definitely the birthplace of hip hop, so it makes sense.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Okay, cool. Well, that's our little snippet of brass ensemble, the hypnotic
Yeah,
brass ensemble. Sorry. Yeah, it's just I thought it was a really cool tune. I love the original anyway, and there's to hear this version of what they've done with it, and particular, although I didn't know at the time, I thought it was a tuba like you did, but the sousaphone action, it's just really it's fun and but really effective as well. It's great to hear that,
yeah,
and as soon as you hear it, it makes total sense. It's still a surprise, but it's
yeah.
still it's awesome. So yeah, so I thought
No,
you might.
I started taking my notes, man. I'm like, the bass is so, and then like it got to about 40 seconds into it. I'm like, that's not the bass. Like they're doing the bass part, but that is not the bass. There's too much
Yeah,
air in there. So yeah, that was one of my favorite things about this whole experience was
yeah,
getting to listen to that instrument do something that I'm used to hearing four or five strings do. You know what I mean? It's pretty cool.
yeah,
Pretty cool for sure.
yeah. Excellent, cool. All right, I shall wrap things up and say thanks for listening, Sandy,
Yeah,
folks
thanks,
out
Rob.
there. Tell us what you think. If you like this, hit the like button. Please let us know because it all helps with things. Um, please drop some comments. We'd love to hear what you think of this. If you're more familiar with Hypnotic Brass Ensemble than either of us are, which wouldn't be hard, then please do tell us what you think of any of their other works. I'm just starting to dig in. I've downloaded about 4 or 5 of their albums. I'm just going through them. Really enjoying what I'm hearing so far. But yeah, please let us know. And if you haven't subscribed already, please consider it. and you too could have all that sousaphone funky goodness in your life every day of the week. Um, we really appreciate everybody who supports the channel. So yeah, thanks a bunch. That being said, thanks again so much for watching, and we'll see all of you in the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.